Think we're live.
If at age 24 years, you were diagnosed with stage 4 cervical cancer, what kind of conversation will you have with yourself? The one in which you are preparing to die, or the one in which you are preparing to live? This is Inspinar. I'm Dr. Nidhi Gupta, pediatric endocrinologist and digital wellness coach in Nashville, Tennessee. My guest today, Dr. Monikah Ogando, is the CEO and founder of the award-winning firm CEO Mastery, an executive development firm that works with exceptional leaders who want to engage their people and increase profits while honoring their true purpose. Dr. Ogando is the author of 3 books and twice a TEDx speaker. With a background in finance and holding 2 doctorates in psychology and in comparative religions, Dr. Ogando has become an authority in building profitable enterprises. Dr. Ogando, when you were diagnosed with stage 4 cervical cancer almost 2 decades ago at the age 24, you decided to take an unconventional route to deal with your cancer. Where did you find that inspiration from, and what was it like?
Well, first, I want to say thank you for having me in this amazing podcast. I'm so glad that we're able to finally connect in this way, and I'm happy to be and share with your audience.
Thank you.
When I was in my 20s, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cervical cancer and given about a year to live. I was in the middle of a really fast upward rise in the financial services industry and didn't take time out for my humanity. I was recently separated from my college sweetheart at the time. We had a daughter and she was 3 years old. So I was just kind of like, I gotta make it happen. It's me against the world kind of deal. So when I got this diagnosis of, cervical cancer and a year to live, I was like, wait, you got the wrong person. That's not my life, right? So at first my response and my reaction was denial. And then it was anger, right? It was like I went through the 5 stages of grief like 300 times. And I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't want to tell my family because like probably Indian families, Latino families are very much like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Ah! And I was like, I can't handle somebody else's energy when I'm trying to figure out my own, right? And so I sought spiritual counsel. And I went to my then pastor, she has since passed away, the Reverend Dr. Mary Tumpkin. And I could tell that she was in between meetings and she was trying to, be present for me. And she said, which conversation are we having? I said, what do you mean? She said, are we talking about you are preparing to die? Or are you saying that you're committed to living? Because if you're preparing to die, the conversations about alternative healing and therapies and whatever are completely irrelevant. You just have to get your affairs in order. And if you're preparing to live, then this fear and the, oh my God, I'm going to leave my child alone, and blah, 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 also irrelevant. So which one are we having? And the fact that she was so charge neutral and clear about that choice. And secondly, the implication that there even was a choice for me to make, right? Like, which conversation are we having? Completely mind blown moment. And for me, it was the beginning of authoring my own life in a more deliberate, rigorous, meticulous, instinctual almost kind of way. So for me, where did I find the inspiration? It was her. It was like, are you kidding? I have a choice and I get to choose. And based on my choice, you then govern your conversation with me about me based on my choice. And I'm like, where else do I do that? Where else can I do that? Can I do that in my finances? Can I do that in my relationships? Can I do that as a mom? as a wife? Can I do that as an entrepreneur, et cetera? And so for me, her clarity and charge neutral way of approaching that conversation was pivotal and life changing.
So you were introduced to spirituality after your diagnosis of cervical cancer, and you have continued.
No, it had been a lifelong journey. But what I'm saying is, because I was already under the, guise of, I was at the feet of already at the time, that was my spiritual mentor. But it wasn't like that was an introduction. It was more like that was a Damascus Road moment. It was like, choose you this day whom you will serve, So yeah, it was very powerful.
You have continued to speak the message of, like you say, dharma plus data for many, many years now. You have been doing retreats in Egypt. So tell us more about those retreats and why Egypt?
Well, like I said, I have always had a thread under all of my endeavors in my professional and even in my personal life of my spirituality has always informed those things. And so the more that I studied religions, the more that I realized everybody gets their beginning in Egypt. Like even Jesus and Plato and Aristotle and these philosophers went through an initiatory process in Egypt. So let me go to my initiatory process in Egypt and let me see what that's like. And the first time that I went to Egypt was in the early 2010s. I think it was 2010 actually when I went the first time. And I have gone 12 times since. And I now, after my 7 times of going as a student, then I started taking people as a guide, as a facilitator. And so for me, it's a sacred mystery school. It's an initiation. It's an opportunity for you to see yourself on the temple walls that have been there for hundreds and thousands of years. And it is also an opportunity to see how the word universe etymologically means one, uni, and verse, song. So it's one song that almost all spiritual traditions are singing. They may use different wording, they may have different traditions, they may have even different rituals to express the same thing. And so when you go to the source of like, this is where all of it stems from, for me, it's very gratifying to take people through that kind of like self-birthing, self-authoring process.
There is a ritual that you have religiously or spiritually followed over many, many years. And when I last talked to you, I was very curious about that ritual. And that is the ritual of water fast. Yes. So for our curious listeners, what does a water fast involve? And what benefit might they expect to gain from this practice?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think we can all kind of agree, if you think about it, is how much of our lives circle around food and food rituals. So even when you're having a business meeting, it's like, let's meet for coffee, let's meet for breakfast, let's meet for lunch, let's meet for dinner, let's meet for, and so it's hard sometimes to not be in this constant consuming consciousness. What fasting has done for me is that it has, because I've said no to physical food, it has allowed me to look at the ways in which I am fed other than physical food. What's my emotional diet? What's my spiritual diet? What am I consuming at the psychic level? So I started paying attention to, well, what are the TV shows that you're watching? What are the movies? What are the songs? What are the things that you're singing? Because it's just like a song and I like it and it's a good bop. But songs are affirmations. And so when I notice that I'm constantly singing things that confirm a limiting belief, I'm like, I need to stop that. But I wouldn't have had that level of consciousness if my body wasn't busy digesting food, because that takes up a lot of energy and a lot of psychic energy. And when you take that away, first of all, you're not going to starve. Especially me at the time, I was like, I have plenty of fat cells to feed on for autophagy. I'm okay. I will be okay. And the biology is so perfectly engineered that when you do get to the point where you're about to starve, your body's like, oh, cue in the hunger again. Because when you start to fast, after about 3 days, those hunger pangs go away. Your body's like, okay, we're done digesting whatever was left over in the stomach. Now we can turn our attention to healing, to restoring detoxifying and rejuvenating cells and organizing our DNA in the way that we weren't able to before, right? It's kind of like how when you take things out of the house or a particular room, it's like now you can get to the windowsills, now you can get to the floor, now you can really clean stuff, right? Same thing with your body. But after a while, when your body's done doing all of that, then it's like, okay, we're ready to eat again. So there's never a danger of like you're gonna starve yourself to death. Your body kicks in with that instinct. And for me, that I started doing it as a 40-day water fast. The year that I healed cancer, I did 40 days of just strictly water, no food, no tea, no soda, nothing like that, just straight water. And then followed by 60 days of raw food. And I did that 3 rounds, so almost for the whole year. When I went back to the oncology office and they ran some tests again, I remember like it was yesterday, the doctor said, "Congratulations, your cancer is in remission." And I was so indignant. I was like, first of all, it's not my cancer. We don't go together. We don't have a relationship like that, number one. Number two, it is not remission. Remission means I'll be right back. This thing is gone. Okay. Now I know I'm going to die someday, but it won't be from this. And I remember him saying, I love the fact that you're so youthful and how fast, young people come back from setbacks, et cetera, et cetera. He was kind of dismissive and a little condescending. And I was like, you know what, it's fine, because this is the last time you're gonna see me. So just enjoy the dimples. I'll pay my copay and let's go. And I remember there have been tragedies that have happened in my life since then. It's just, keep on living, right? You'll have enough ups and downs. But doing the water fasting has allowed me to recognize, kind of like identify my own color ID of who's speaking. I always say to my clients and to people that I coach, when you hear that inside voice that tells you can't do something or that tells you to do one thing or another, how do you know that it's your higher self? How do you know that it's your intuition? You have to spend enough time with yourself to recognize that voice. And that's what water fasting has done for me, is that it has allowed me to spend enough time with zero stimulus that whatever's left is like, oh, I can be in communion with you. And I can recognize my inner voice. I can recognize my higher self, my intuition. And I also can recognize my ego. Not only is it a different voice, but it also has a different tone and a different urgency and a different beat, right? My higher self does not speak in guilt. It doesn't speak in judgment. It doesn't speak in like, oh, we got to hurry up and do this because it's timeless. It is infinite. So it's like, but it's very certain, it's just kind of like how if you were driving me to your house, and you were to say, okay, turn here, there's no rush to that. There's just certainty. There's authority. There's like, I know what I'm doing. Turn here, right? It's the same thing with my higher self. And recognizing that voice, Nidhi, was for me so liberating, because then it was like, now I know who to ignore. When I have this voice that says, oh, you suck and you don't know what you're doing, it's like, thank you for sharing, but you're not in charge. Okay, thanks so much, and it allowed me to be focused and to be gentle, not only with myself, but with other people.
So the process of water fasting and the rituals that you follow help you declutter not just your body, but your mind.
Yes.
You let go of a lot of stimulus that you felt were unnecessary.
Yes.
Now, Dr. Ogando, we live in a world of constant stimulation where even if it's not the food, there is all kinds of stimulus. There are emails, there are text messaging, there is social media, there are relationships, there is, of course, food. Do you believe that living in a world of constant stimulation, where our mind has no time to rest and reset, interferes with the growth of our intelligence?
Yes, I do, wholeheartedly. And it's on purpose. It's on purpose. If a society wants its citizens to be consumers of capitalism, of products, of services, etc., then it does not behoove that society for you to be a critical thinker, or for you to be creative, or for you to blaze your own trail. You need to follow a path, you need to follow a formula. We're going to tell you what that formula is. And if you deviate, there's going to be some social punishment for that, cancel culture, or economic sanctions, if you choose to blaze your own trail. And so there is a gravitational pull towards conformity that you have to kind of fight against. And that's why removing yourself from all of those stimulus will allow you to think more clearly about certain things and make those kinds of decisions. But also, once you go back in it, because it's kind of like how in the spiritual tradition says you can be in the world and not of it. So once you're in the world again, then it's like, oh, okay, I can see this. And instead of getting angry or resentful about it, you understand the game that's being played. You don't have to play into it. You can be a free agent, as it were.
You're
But yeah,
speaking my language.
A lot of those things are distractions on purpose.
You're speaking my language when you say be in the word, not of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you also talk about the idea of cognitive intelligence versus natural intelligence. Tell us more about what's the difference between the two. How does it apply in real life? What does it mean in real life for someone to say that I am cognitively intelligent versus the other person is naturally intelligent? What does it mean?
So, there are some people who are really, really book smart, but common sense poor. Right? Yes. It's kind of like that. If you notice children when they are playing with each other, they have no problem asserting their own boundaries. They when sometimes you're like, oh, let me get a hug. If they don't want you to hug them or touch them, they will say no. That's not them being a brat. That's them asserting their boundaries. That's them owning their own authority. And it does not cancel out their ability to be empathetic. Then when they see somebody in trouble, when they see somebody in distress, oh, what's wrong? What can I do? So having and honoring your own boundaries does not make you a jerk in community. It actually supports you in being able to be there for somebody else because you be there for yourself. That's natural intelligence. Cognitive intelligence puts some societal pressures on you, like this is when you're supposed to get married and this is when you're supposed to have children, and you're not fully a woman if you haven't mothered, and you're not fully a member of society if you don't have a job or a career or degrees behind your name, and da 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 da. And so there's this cognitive dissonance that happens with people when they're like, we've been climbing this mountain that parents or school or society or teachers or guidance counselors told you that you're supposed to climb. But when you get to the top of the mountain, you're like, I'm not even happy. This is not even what I want. What is happening here? So then you experience this cognitive dissonance. You got to climb back down the mountain. It's kind of like the walk of shame. And then you got to figure out, well, which mountain do I want to climb? Do I even have to climb any mountains? And so when you can hook yourself up to your own natural intelligence, because you never lose it, you just forget it. And then it's a process of remembering. So when you can hook yourself to your own natural intelligence again and have that be the guiding voice, the lighthouse, as it were, in a tumultuous sea, then people can say what they want to say or have the judgments or have whatever. And when you follow that natural intelligence, one of two things will happen. If you saw the movie Forrest Gump, he was following his own thing, and eventually people started running with him. They don't even know why they're running, but they saw Forrest running. They're like, hey, he must be up to something. Let's do this, right?
Yes.
So one of two things will happen. Either people will get in touch with their own compass and follow that, or they'll trust your leadership and follow yours until they can find their own. And one of the things that I have always said is masters create masters. Masters don't create followers. That's a cult leader. Masters create and facilitate and evoke the mastery in other people. And so when folks come to me for coaching, et cetera, it's not like, oh, the great Dr. Monikah. It's more like, what's the greatness that's inside of you? Let's bring that out. Let's amplify that. And that the spiritual practices that going to Egypt, water fasting, prayer, meditation, even physical exercise, dancing. I'm a huge fan of dancing. All of those things get me in touch with that natural intelligence so that I can then hold space for people discovering and accessing their own.
And also so that you can inspire other people to develop their wealth and worthiness, which is very well reflected in your program, Women, Wealth and Worthiness. It's a passionate project of yours, Dr. Ogando. Yes. So is this project born out of maybe your own struggles as a woman, an entrepreneur, and as someone who tried to change the status quo?
Yeah, first of all, a lot of financial courses that are out there focus a lot on the financial literacy part. Here's how you repair your credit. Here's how you budget. Here's how you build your investments or your retirement, etc. But they don't talk intersectionality about some of the cultural pressures that people feel. For example, I'm a first generation immigrant. When I was in college, I was sending money back home to my parents. That's the time when you're supposed to be like foundation and creating your own, and you're going to parties with your friends or whatever. That was not my life. My life was get out of college as soon as possible because you're paying your own tuition. And the longer you're here, the more money you're paying and the more student loans, and your parents can't help you. And in fact, they need your help, right? And so for the intersectionality aspect of how race and gender, culture, generation, socioeconomic status, all of those things influence our relationship with money. And you can tell a very intelligent woman, follow these steps, do A, B, C, D, and E, and she won't do it. And the reason why she won't do it isn't because she's not intelligent. It's because there's a worthiness conversation that we have not confronted. And you will never be able to out-behave your self-identity. Your self-identity will always be the ceiling against which all the strategies, all the habits, all the practices, all the rituals bump up again. If you don't think you deserve more than this, your behavior won't let you get more than this. So we have to work on the worthiness aspect of it. That's why I named the course Women, Wealth, and Worthiness, because your wealth is a function of how worthy you feel, not only of your own abundance, but of the legacy that you dream of. And the intersectionality of it has a lot to do with defining it.
Thank you, Dr. Ogando. Thank you for being on Inspinar and for sharing your powerful, inspirational life story as you continue to lead many, many more people in your wonderful work. Thank you again for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. So appreciate you, Nidhi.
I will close today's episode with my usual parting message. Let's reconnect with what truly matters. Let's reconnect with real life. Let's reconnect with health, joy, and efficiency. Let's ungrip devices and grip life. I will see you next week.